Let's dive right in. Has the weight of your financial situation ever felt, well, so heavy it's hard to breathe?
Mm-hmm.
That sensation of being completely stuck, maybe even a little afraid of what the future holds, if so, you're definitely not alone.
No, it's a surprisingly common feeling, actually, when you're facing money troubles. That lack of control, it can be truly overwhelming.
And that's exactly what we're tackling today. We want to explore some real um, hands-on steps you can take when you're feeling that pressure.
Yeah.
Think of this as like a practical guide to getting back in the driver's seat and building a more solid financial foundation.
And this builds on some important groundwork. We actually suggest maybe taking a look at coping with financial stress first. It's
Yeah.
from the same series.
Right.
That one focuses more on the emotional side of things, but today, yeah, we're zeroing in on the practical strategies.
Exactly. Our aim here is to help you pinpoint what's really causing that financial strain.
Right.
Zoom in on the areas where you actually have some leverage, and uncover concrete ways to create a more secure financial future for yourself.
Okay, so let's get started then. The very first thing we need to do, really, is get a clear picture of the whole situation.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Step one, understanding the root cause and all the factors that have kind of led to this point.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right? Knowing where the difficulties actually started, it can give you a much clearer roadmap to finding solutions and, well, getting back on track.
Absolutely. Think of it like trying to fix a leak in your house. You need to find the source first, don't you?
Totally.
So what are some of the key questions you should be asking yourself to identify that root cause?
Well, the material suggests considering if there was a specific unexpected event,
Hmm.
something significant like a divorce or maybe the loss of a loved one. That can obviously have a major financial impact.
Oh, absolutely. Those are undoubtedly huge life changes that can set off a financial chain reaction.
Yeah.
We should also think about any loss of income. Was it a job loss, maybe a reduction in hours, or just, another significant drop in earnings?
Right. And then there are other big life changes. Some may be positive, like welcoming a new baby,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
But also others, like taking on the responsibility of caring for an elderly parent. These can really reshape your financial reality. The crucial thing here, it seems, is to really pinpoint when these financial troubles began.
That's a really insightful point. Identifying that starting point isn't just about looking back. It helps you understand what fundamentally shifted and what needs to be addressed going forward.
Okay.
Beyond that initial event, we also need to look at what other financial factors might have, well, made the situation worse or maybe made you more vulnerable in the first place.
Things like not having a written budget, or maybe having one but not really sticking to it closely.
Exactly.
It seems like that could definitely leave you less prepared to handle unexpected financial hits.
Precisely. And what about an emergency fund? Did you actually have savings set aside for those just-in-case moments? If you did, how long did those savings actually last once things got tough? That can give you a clearer picture of your financial resilience.
And this is a common one, isn't it?
Mm.
Were you already carrying a significant amount of credit card debt before these current troubles even started?
Yeah, that's a big one. That existing debt can really amplify the impact of any other financial setbacks that come along.
Right.
So these are all critical questions for some self-reflection. Answering them honestly will not only help you understand the immediate situation, but also kind of inform the development of a much more effective financial strategy for the future.
Okay, so once you've really dug into the root cause and the contributing factors,
Yeah.
what's the next step? Because when you're in the middle of it, it can feel like you're just drowning,
Yeah.
like there's nothing you can actually do to change things.
Oh, I get that. That feeling of powerlessness is very understandable in stressful financial times, feeling like you have zero control over your money, your debts, your credit score.
Yeah.
However, it's really important to remember that there are key areas where you absolutely do have influence.
Okay, tell me more. What tangible things can we actually control in these situations?
Well, the primary areas of control you have are your income, your expenses, and your overall financial strategy. Let's break those down a bit, maybe starting with income.
Increasing income. Yeah, that can feel like a huge hurdle, especially if you've recently lost a job or something. But the material suggests that for most people, there are ways to boost income, at least in some capacity.
That's right. It might not be an overnight fix, but actively looking for ways to bring in more money is a really empowering step. You could start by asking yourself, when did I last get a meaningful pay increase?
Hmm.
Is my current pay really in line with my skills, my experience, and well, the current market.
And if the answer to that is, uh-oh, it's been a while, or probably not, then the next question, which might feel a bit awkward, is pretty direct. Could it be time to start looking at new job opportunities? Maybe somewhere that offers better pay.
It's a big decision, no doubt about it. But sometimes changing employers is honestly the most direct route to increasing your earning potential. Also, think broader look at your household.
Okay.
Is there anyone else in the household who could potentially pick up a side gig, maybe a part-time job, or even some freelance work? Even a relatively small but consistent extra income stream can make a real difference.
The material even advises creating a clear list of your accomplishments, your strengths, what you actually contribute in your current role.
Yeah.
That seems like really smart advice if you're planning to ask for a raise.
Absolutely. Having that written down not only boosts your own confidence, but also gives you concrete evidence to back up your request. And look, if a raise just isn't realistic where you are right
Right.
now,
Yeah.
then seriously, considering a move to a new employer might be the most effective way forward. Now, a crucial point here, we want to increase income sustainably, right?
Mhm.
Not by burning ourselves out completely.
Right. That's important.
So when you're exploring extra income, try to think about options that maybe align with skills you already have, or even hobbies, things that won't feel like just another heavy burden.
That makes a lot of sense. Finding sustainable ways to boost your resources. The material also mentions one-time income boosts. Where might someone look for those?
Well, start by looking around your home. Do you have items, clothes, electronics, furniture that you just don't use or need anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Selling those online, maybe on eBay or local marketplaces like OfferUp, can actually generate a surprising amount of cash sometimes.
I've definitely heard stories like that. People decluttering and making some decent money. What other ways are there for a one-time boost?
Okay, this is an interesting one that a lot of people don't know about. Checking official state directories for unclaimed money.
Unclaimed money.
Yeah. You can usually check this easily online. Unclaimed.org is a good place to start. You might be surprised to find money owed to you from old bank accounts, forgotten security deposits, things like that.
Wow, I hadn't even thought of that.
Mm.
And the material also says to keep an eye on your mail and even check with local legal offices for any notices about unclaimed funds.
Exactly. It sounds a bit like searching for treasure, but there might be more opportunities out there than we realize.
Oh.
And look, even if these are smaller amounts individually, they can really add up and give you a much-needed starting point for rebuilding that crucial emergency fund.
Right.
Speaking of managing resources, let's shift to the second key area of control, your expenses.
Okay, this is the part that often feels the most, well, restrictive, I guess, but it's probably essential for most of us. Cutting expenses to free up more cash.
It really is. It's about taking a really honest look at where your money is actually going and making deliberate adjustments to things that aren't absolutely necessary.
Mm-hmm.
This immediately frees up funds that can then go towards those emergencies we talked about or towards paying down debt faster. And the important thing to remember here is these cuts don't have to be forever. Think of it as temporarily tightening your belt to get through a rough patch. Once you're more stable financially, you might be able to bring some of those expenses back.
So where do you even begin with cutting back? What sort of questions should you ask yourself when you're looking at your spending?
Maybe start by looking at recurring entertainment costs. Do you have like 3 or 4 different streaming services?
Guilty.
Yeah. Perhaps you could temporarily cancel the ones you use least. What about eating habits? If you find yourself eating out or getting takeout a lot,
Yeah,
could you commit to cooking more meals at home, packing lunches for work? The savings there alone can be pretty significant.
definitely. I know my daily coffee habit could probably use a closer inspection.
What else should we be thinking about?
Think about any services you're paying for that maybe, just maybe, you could handle yourself, at least for a while.
Things like lawn care, maybe some house cleaning tasks. And then there's subscriptions magazines you don't read, subscription boxes, even those recurring deliveries for groceries or personal care items. Take a really critical look at what you're actually using consistently and whether you truly need each one right now.
This makes me think of something the material mentioned, spending leaks, or sometimes it's called the Latte factor. Can you explain that?
Oh, absolutely. These are those small, seemingly insignificant daily or weekly expenses that, over time really add up to a substantial amount.
Like the coffee example.
Exactly. That classic $4 daily coffee. It doesn't feel like much at the time, but do the math. Over a month, that's $120. And if you were to, say, hypothetically invest that same $120 every month for 40 years, assuming a reasonable return, Well, the example in the material mentioned, it could potentially grow to a huge sum, like over $765,000.
Wow. Okay, seeing that long-term potential really puts those small, everyday purchases in a completely new light.
It really does, doesn't it? So the immediate action item here is to really try and identify as many of those spending leaks as you can and, well, eliminate them, at least for the time being.
Right.
And the benefits of making these cuts are pretty big. It immediately increases your cash flow, right?
Yeah.
It helps you stop relying on credit cards for everyday stuff. It lets you start building that emergency fund. And it gives you that financial breathing room later on to maybe add some things back thoughtfully when your situation improves.
Okay, so we've talked about getting more control over our income and our expenses. The third key area you mentioned was reevaluating our financial strategy. What exactly does that mean?
This basically involves taking a hard, honest look at whether your current approach to managing your money and your debt is actually working for you.
Hmm.
If you find yourself constantly stuck in negative cycles, like, just barely making minimum payments or maybe even defaulting on loans, that's a pretty clear sign your current strategies aren't cutting it, and it's time to explore other options.
So, if what we're doing isn't working, the next step is to research alternatives. The material highlighted some specific solutions for different kinds of debt, didn't it?
Yes, it did. Let's start with credit card debt, since that's such a common challenge. One potential option is to enroll in something called a debt management program, usually through a reputable nonprofit credit counseling agency.
Yeah.
These programs often work with your creditors to try and negotiate lower interest rates and set up a more manageable repayment plan.
That sounds like it could provide some serious relief. What are some other strategies for tackling credit card debt?
Well, another avenue is consolidating your balances. You might take out a personal loan, hopefully with a much lower interest rate than your credit cards,
Right.
and use that to pay off the cards. This simplifies things into one monthly payment, which might be more affordable. Then there's debt settlement, though this can hurt your credit score.
How does that work?
It's where you, or a company you hire, try to negotiate with your creditors to pay a lump sum that's less than the total amount you actually owe. This is usually for accounts that are already past due or charged off.
Got it. What about other types of debt, like student loans? Those can be a big burden too.
Definitely. For federal student loans, there are several repayment options worth investigating. Things like income-driven repayment plans.
Where the payment depends on your income.
Exactly. Your payment is calculated based on your income and family size. There are also extended repayment plans that give you a longer time to pay, potentially lowering the monthly amount. Consolidation and refinancing are also options to look into, depending on your situation.
And medical bills. They can pop up unexpectedly and be really overwhelming.
They can. A good first step is always to try and negotiate a payment plan directly with the hospital or the provider. Many are willing to work out installment plans.
Okay.
You can also look into options for medical debt consolidation or see if there are any patient assistance programs available that could help reduce the burden.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of potential options to research. It's good to know there are different paths depending on the type of debt. And the material really stressed researching free debt
Yeah.
and budget evaluation resources, right?
Absolutely. There are many trustworthy nonprofit organizations out there that offer confidential guidance. They can help you assess your overall financial picture and understand which options might be best for you.
Okay. So we've covered identifying root causes, focusing on what we can control, income, expenses, strategy. How do we actually pull all these pieces together to start moving towards a better financial place?
It really comes down to taking deliberate, consistent action in those areas we discussed. Remember, focusing on the parts you can influence is absolutely key to breaking that awful feeling of being overwhelmed.
Mm.
So start by implementing those cuts to your non-essential expenses. That's often the quickest way to free up some immediate cash. At the same time, actively explore those ways to increase your income, even if it just starts small.
So making those changes to spending and looking for more income simultaneously, that creates the breathing room you mentioned earlier.
Exactly that. That extra cash flow gives you the space and, frankly, the mental energy you need to thoroughly research those debt relief options we just talked about.
Right.
Once you find the solution that seems like a good fit for your situation and your budget, then, act on it reasonably quickly. Just keep in mind some options, like debt settlement, might require you to have saved up some funds beforehand to make the deal.
And the material made a really crucial point about not digging the hole deeper while you're trying to climb out, right?
Yes, very important. It strongly advises against continuing to rack up more charges on your credit cards while you're actively working on recovery.
Makes sense.
It even suggests a very practical, maybe drastic sounding step. Consider literally taking your credit cards out of your wallet or even freezing them, like putting them in a container of water in the freezer.
Uh-huh, really. Freeze them.
Yeah. It just makes it that much harder to impulsively use them for everyday things. It's about limiting access and temptation.
Okay, that's some really solid practical advice for dealing with the immediate challenges.
Right.
But what about setting ourselves up for greater financial stability in the long run, once we've gotten past these current hurdles?
Yes. That's the crucial next phase, isn't it? Once you feel like you're on more stable ground, the focus shifts to building lasting financial security. And really a cornerstone of that is setting up and consistently using a working budget.
Budgeting. Okay, yeah. It can sometimes feel a bit restrictive, like homework,
Yeah.
but the material frames it as a tool for empowerment. Why is that perspective important?
Because a good budget gives you that clear, comprehensive picture of where your money is coming from and exactly where it's going. It's not about restriction, it's about awareness.
Right.
This awareness empowers you to make informed choices about your spending, spot areas where you could save more effectively, and actually track your progress towards paying off debt or reaching savings goals. And luckily, there are tons of tools now.
Like apps and stuff.
Yeah, budgeting apps like Mint or YNE, you need a budget. Or you can use a simple spreadsheet, or even the old school envelope method with cash. The key is finding a system that works for you, something you'll actually stick with.
Definitely. Finding a system that fits your style seems crucial for sticking with it. What's the next critical step for building that long-term stability?
Building and maintaining an adequate emergency fund. This is your financial safety net, the cushion for those unexpected things life throws at you.
Right. How much should that be?
Well, a general guideline is to aim for enough readily accessible savings to cover, say, 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, etc.
3 to 6 months.
Okay. And maybe, if the economy feels a bit shaky, aiming for closer to 6 to 12 months might provide even more peace of mind.
That can sound like a really daunting amount of money to save. Where should someone even start if that number feels huge?
You absolutely start small. Set realistic, achievable milestones. Maybe your first goal is just $100, then $500, then work up to $1,000 and keep going.
To break it down.
Exactly. The material points out that even having a $5,000 emergency fund can provide a pretty substantial buffer to handle major unexpected costs like a big car repair, a new furnace, or even covering bills during a short period of unemployment. And remember, this fund is specifically for those genuine, unforeseen emergencies, not for planned expenses like holidays or a new TV.
That makes perfect sense. It's for absorbing those inevitable surprises.
Yeah.
What's the final key element you mentioned for setting ourselves up for a more secure financial future?
It's about shifting your mindset, really, moving from being reactive with your finances to being proactive.
Okay, what did that look like?
Financial planning isn't just something you do once when you think about retirement, way down the line. It's an ongoing process that should cover all of life's significant events. Planning a big vacation, expecting to add a new member to the family. Take the time now to calculate the potential costs and start saving specifically for those things in advance. Regularly review your financial goals, your progress, and have open conversations about money with anyone else involved in your household finances. And critically, don't neglect planning and saving for retirement.
That's such an important point. It's easy to let retirement planning slide when immediate pressures feel more urgent.
It is, but it's so vital. If your employer offers a retirement savings plan like a 401k, especially if they offer a match.
The employer match.
Yes, make absolutely sure you're contributing at least enough to get the full employer match. That is literally free money that significantly boosts your retirement savings over time. It's one of the best deals out there.
Definitely don't leave free money on the table.
Exactly. And if you already have retirement accounts like a 401k or an IRA, take the time, periodically, maybe once a year, to review how they're performing. You might consider talking with an independent financial advisor or just exploring the investment options available to you to make sure you're on a good track for your long-term goals. Ultimately, taking this proactive approach to your finances builds genuine stability and gives you a much greater sense of control over your destiny, which really helps reduce that fear and anxiety around money.
So just to quickly recap everything, we've looked at the importance of digging in to find the root causes of financial trouble, then focusing hard on the things we can control, boosting income where possible, cutting expenses smartly, and rethinking our overall financial strategy. And then, looking ahead, building that foundation for long-term stability through consistent budgeting, building up that emergency fund cushion, and adopting that proactive planning mindset for the future.
That's an excellent summary. And I think the most important message really is that you don't have to fix everything overnight. Even by taking small, consistent steps in each of these areas, you really can achieve significant improvements in your financial well-being and start to ease that feeling of being completely overwhelmed.
So maybe here's a final thought for everyone listening to consider. What is one small but meaningful action you can commit to taking, maybe even today, to start regaining some control over your financial situation? Just reflect on what we've discussed. Find that one initial step you can take right now and start moving forward. Thanks so much for taking this deep dive with us today.